And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I was pretty excited when I got a copy of Ninja All-Stars. This is made from Soda Pop Miniatures, the same people who made Super Dungeon Explorer, and the miniatures that came with this game are really good. We're talking as good as the miniatures from Cool Mini or not. I really like them. Lots of little, basically, chibi ninjas, you know, the whole, hey, look guys, my head's as big as the rest of my body. That's fine. I don't mind that, and so that sounds fun. It was a combat-style game with rolling dice and cards. So very excited about this one. Let's see how it plays. So there's two sides to the board. You can see the night board on this side, and then here is a day board. Now both these boards are really beautiful. It might not be coming across so clear on the camera, but there's a gloss on them, but it comes across really shiny and bright. And if you look closely at them, there are several dots on the board. This is where the figures are going to be. So they're going to be on a specific dot, and they have a facing. So when you move a figure, you'll be moving from dot to dot, and then when you're done, you have a facing, and they have like a control zone in the spaces directly around them. Some dots have different symbols in them, and these symbols are just different terrain types, which will have different sorts of things. Maybe like here, you're climbing up on the roof and running from rooftop to rooftop. And on the outside of the board, you're going to see some spots where these spots with the squares around them where you will be able to start. Now each player is going to get in this base game. Now there's two ways to play the game. One way is to take like a regular army, and each person will pick one of the shrines. You can pick Earth, Void, Spirit, Air, Fire, and Water. They are pretty close, but they are not completely identical. So you can see here the move for the Chunin is 5 for both of these. This is attack of 4 and 3, attack of 3 and 4 of defense. 3 and 4, 4 and 3, 4 and 3, 3 and 4. So they're like different, but they also might have some things. Like this one has special close combat, master and emptiness, close combat, master and guard, close combat, master and fortune, and spirit and precision strike. So they have different stats. Some of their stats are the same, but again, usually it's just a reversing of the numbers. And then they each have like a ranged figure. So they have different figures. Now you can use these figures. On the back it usually tells you what the special abilities are, and you have this army, or you can build an army. When you build an army, you don't use those figures at all. Instead, you're going to go in this book here, and you're going to get a certain number of points to build the army, and these are the points that you'll use here. And then you'll just build an army. And in the book says you can use any of these miniatures to build yourself an army. But they sell, of course, their own miniatures. So, hey, you want to buy these miniatures, like this really cool miniature. And there are just a lot of different miniatures. There's different clans, and each clan has all their stats. And if you're going to use these and build your own, you're going to have to like figure out either to get 2 of these books so that you can have it open, or write down all the stats and special abilities for each of the players. But likely you're probably just going to want to go out. I mean, that's a really cool model. Here it shows it painted. And you're going to probably want that because you'll have a hard time remembering what each of the models stands for. Now the way that it matches there's different scenarios and such, but each scenario is going to have different ways to get points. Maybe it's as simple as every time you kill an opponent's figure, you get a point. Or like, for example, one of them, there's a specific person, you pick that person, you kill them, you get bonus points. And a certain number of points will win you the round, but it all depends on, again, the parameters of the scenario. Although most scenarios are essentially run around and attack somebody else. And the game comes with lots of different plastic miniatures. At the beginning of each turn, when miniatures die, they go to like a healing house. That's a neutral miniature. They go to a healing house. You're always able to bring 1 miniature here, but you have an extra action. So if you have more there, you can bring 1, and you'll redeploy it as like a spawning type system. Or you can draw a card, or you have, you can basically spend 1 action. You're going to have these cards. These cards are tied to the moon phase. Each round the moon phase is going to change. Here's a round tracker, but the moon is going to be moving around, And depending what type of moon it is, you'll be able to play these cards. These cards will let you do one thing, but if, for example, it's the void moon phase. So, for example, when a friendly model activates, play this card to give it moon power. However, one additional friendly model also gets moon power. Maybe here, the stellar alignment, or the Raisin's Spark. After rolls played, play it to re-roll a die that shows that symbol. And a fire move during combat, instead of re-rolling that result, you add a die to your roll with this result on it. So you have different things, but if it's during the right moon, these cards will be better. And the cards are also color coordinated to the different phases of the moon. So players are going to take turns after they've brought any models maybe out of the sick house, and they're going to pick a model, they're going to move it, its activation. They can move it twice. Once they're done activating it, you put one of these tokens by it to show that it has been activated. You keep going till everyone's activated all their figures. Now, if you're attacking someone else, so let's say this model ends his turn here, and they attack each other. This is how attacking works in this game. Let's say the model attacking has 4 dice and the defensive model has 3 dice in this scenario. All right, so we're going to roll these dice. So these are the dice that have been rolled. Now these dice have different symbols on them, but some of these symbols are like opposite symbols. And so we are going to cancel out the opposite symbols. How do we know the opposite symbols are? Well, there's a chart on the back of the rule book that tells us. So spirit and void cancel out. Well, this is a spirit die and this is a void die. So those dice go away. And then we have earth and air. So I see earth here, but there's no air on the opponent's side. And then we have water and fire. Well, I see fire, but no water. So these are the dice that are left over. We then see who rolled the most dice, and that person will pick one of their dice and do whatever the action is on that one. So for example, if it's a spirit die, which is the one that's not shown here, then the attacker would be injured. So the defender would pick that one. If it's the void, that's this one here, then the defender is injured. If it's earth, the defender's stunned. If it's air, the attacker can move the defender 3 spaces in any direction. If it's water, you can move the attacker in any direction. And if it's fire, all models that are in the attacker's influence area, which is the spots around him, including the attacker, are stunned. Now, most likely, if you're attacking, you'll pick the defender is injured, and if you're defending, you'll pick the attacker is injured. And if you're the attacker, you probably won't go in if you have more dice. But there are cards that can change the number of dice that are rolled and things like that. And when someone is injured, then they go to the healing room, and you just keep going on, and that might give points. That's pretty much the game. Now, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of tokens that come with the game. Some of these are tokens that when you get to them, there might be terrain or they might be objectives. There's different status tokens that can cause different things to happen to players where they get stunned or something bad. You have the opportunity to take these people and make them stealthy so no one can shoot, get them. You have people who have ranged attack and they can shoot other people. And then the combat dice go, but the defender cannot hurt the attacker in such an attack. But really, there's not much more than that. There is a campaign style way to play where you can get experience, and at the end of a mission, you'll roll dice and people will get to go up some. And this rule book here tells you, not this rule book, and these sheets here are where you keep track of your teams and the different people and their stats and how they grow and stuff over the campaign. But if you just want to play like a quick skirmish play, the rules I told you are mostly what's involved in the game. Ninja All-Stars. The board, the dice, the miniatures, the tokens. It is a beautiful, tremendous production. However, when you strip away all that beauty, there's not much of a game here. Now, this combat mechanism, which I bet they thought about long and hard, and they said, how can we make a unique, interesting combat mechanism? And so they made these symbols on the dice, which honestly could just be replaced with 1 through 6, right? But they made different symbols to match those. And then they had this idea that clashing ones would remove, the ones left over, that's what you pick, and that's what happens after the battle is done. I think if I ranked all the combat systems that I've ever played in any game, this is at the bottom, or at least in the bottom 2 or 3. I cannot tell you how much I hate this combat system. I infuriatingly hate it. It is just plain awful. And I have racked my brain and tried to figure out what I'm missing. I went online and looked at it. I sat down and did mathematics on it. It's just, what is it? I mean, essentially, the attacker has to have more dice than the defender. Or why would you even bother attacking? Because pairs cancel out, but only if they are different colors. So if I go in and I have 4 dice and you have 2, and as a defender, the best you can hope for is to cancel 2 of my pairs and then hope that one of the dice left over says that they both say, the attacker gets injured. I mean, what is that? What kind of combat system is that? It's this really convoluted way. And by the way, these symbols are not intuitive, and it's not intuitive at which one cancels which. I mean, why not make the ones that cancel out like the same color or something? I played games of this, and I'm still not sure what the symbols mean. I'm constantly looking at the symbols. And so you're going to say, maybe if you're a fan of the game, like, hey, these cards change combat. Kind of, sort of. Some of them do. Hey, you get an extra defensive die. You get an extra attack die. And that's interesting, I guess, when you attack me, I'm like, aha, I get an extra defensive die. And it's the right moon, so I get 2. But still, what is all this rolling of dice? Why not just say, hey, the attacker won, the defender won, now roll a die and see what happens? That would be random, right? That'd be annoying. So this is this convoluted system that says the more dice you attack with, the greater your chances are that they won't be canceled out, and then you can pick the thing you want to happen. That's going to happen. But all this weird chart canceling stuff could probably have been compressed into a simple roll a 6-sided die and see if you hit the other person. Sometimes cool and clever combat mechanisms are not needed. Just roll dice to see if you hit or not. I mean, the most popular games are like, chuck, 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 and like, ooh, hit, hit, hit. That's how this combat system goes. You roll dice, you go, all right, line them up. Okay, these cancel, these cancel, these cancel. That's what left. Ooh, okay, I will do, what is that? Oh, yeah, I'll do that one. That's not that interesting. And this game has this, facing matters, and this matters, and special abilities. In reality, none of that really matters except just roll the dice and see what happens. But special abilities. Well, first of all, I know that this is just a starter set and they want you to go and buy all these special figures, right? I mean, there's so many, I take a look at these figures and I'm like, ooh, I want to get this stuff. But for me to go out and get this stuff, I need to know that the game itself is that interesting. These are all variations on the same thing, the ones that come with the game. And the game's like, well, you can play with these. Well, anyone who's ever played any kind of miniature game knows that proxy miniatures are a pain in the neck because you never remember who is who. And there's some interesting abilities here, and I tested some of these abilities out. And there's infinity tests you can make where you're trying to roll your symbol, as if that's any different than just saying you need to roll 6. I feel like there's this, ooh, look at all these things these dice can do. Not really. They're 6-sided dice. They just changed the numbers out for symbols and said that symbol is your symbol. But that's not that interesting. Gorgeous models. Interesting idea for a game, I guess. I mean, it's not like this whole idea of running people around attacking each other is that unique. But this one just really bombed for me. And I want it to like it because this is the style game I get excited about. I'm like, ooh, a combat miniature type game that's super light and simple. But it's not. The combat system's this convoluted, weird thing. The card play is not as interesting as I thought, especially since the cool things the cards do only take place how many moon phases are there? 6. 1/6 of the time. And it's also the fiddly. You have to mark each model that's moved, and there's different tokens all over the board. And that stuff is more acceptable in a war game or a miniatures game that has a lot more going on, and this one just does not. There are simple, fast games. I mean, I don't mean to keep drawing a comparison between this and Cool Mini or Not, but Cool Mini or Not made Arcadia Quest, and you roll dice, and it shows, if you roll a sword, you hit the other person, and they roll a shield to block it, not air versus fire, cancel out, then look at this die to do that. Meh. This game is very pretty, but a pretty face hides a pretty poor game. Dice Tower Judgment, disappointed!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff.
Gosh darn door!
Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.